Big issue. Number 7. One of the best predictors of treatment outcome is service dose. Notice I did not say length of stay. This is not about, oh great, Bill's arguing for more days of inpatient treatment. I've run a lot of residential inpatient treatment programs in my life, and I'm not here to make that argument because the evidence doesn't support that. The evidence supports a dose effect for non-methadone treatment modalities, a minimum dose, as we heard at break this morning, of 90 days. That's not within I'm not saying you need to keep people 90 days in your level of care. What am I saying? This can be across multiple levels of care. What we know, when we get to 90 days, above that, recovery outcomes begin to increase. When we go below the 90 days, recovery outcomes begin to deteriorate. Now let's switch for a moment and talk about methadone. There, when we have a dose less than 1 year, I got a new study that's talking 2 years, so I'm kind of got this piece, I'm just giving you on probation. 1 year pending a new study that I got to look at. But up until this study, what we would have said is with less than anything less than 1 year of methadone will generate exceptionally high relapse rates the second you stop methadone, and also increase morbidity and mortality. Because what? People have lost tolerance through the process of methadone detoxification. And when they go back and resume use, what's the risk of overdose deaths in that population? Very high. So we not only get high relapse rates, we get high risk of, in that process of relapse, we get high death rates from overdose. So the issue is not how quickly can we get somebody out of methadone treatment. For those of us who have anti-methadone biases, the science says what? We need to keep people in methadone for a long enough dose that we can bring a level of stability to their life and begin to build a large amount of recovery supports around them before we begin to talk about the process of titrating, tapering, or full detoxification. We referenced that this comes out of NIDA's Principles of Addiction Treatment. The 90-day just keeps coming up again and again and again in all of our studies. So here's the question. In your state, I know we got 3 or 4 states represented here today. In your state, what percentage of clients from the point of admission to the ending this service episode do you think get 90 days across levels of care? You know, I wish I could tell you, but I can't tell you. You know why? Everywhere I go, people can tell me, we can tell you the average length of time in residential. We can tell you the average length of time in outpatient or IOP. But guess what? Our data systems right now are not even sophisticated enough to tell me if a client goes from detox to residential to IOP to outpatient and discharge, they can't link the same identity together and tell me what percentage of those clients end up with more than 90 days. So we don't have the data. But when we do these little spot checks, what do you think we find in most states? Percentage of clients who, if they're admitted to, and I'm talking about without service breaks. I'm not saying they do residential, go out and relapse, and 2 weeks later they're back in another, that's a new admission. The clock starts all over. They can go from multiple levels, but there's got to be continuity of care. That's the 90-day dose. What percentage? Looks like less than half. Less than half, almost across the board. Nationally, less than half. Let me use another chronic disease analogy or acute disease. We all know about antibiotics, right? Because we all had, most of us in this room have had antibiotics. And you know the great news when you take antibiotics is about a third to halfway through them, your symptoms are gone. And a whole bunch of people stop taking them, right? And you know what? That's the great news. The good news is for some of you, that will be enough to take care of that thing. You can leave them in your cabinet and you'll have half left for next time, right? Like I know a lot of you people do that because they're getting expensive. But let's go, why is it so important to take all the antibiotics? There's a bunch of reasons here. Because when you only get half the antibiotics, there's an incredibly high risk of the condition returning because of inadequate dose. And it's not just that it returns. It returns in a more virulent form And now you're resistant to the treatment because the bugs figured out how to fight that half dose you gave them. And it won't work anymore. You think we got some treatment-resistant folks out there because they've been cycled through so many brief treatments in the United States? Yeah, I think we do. I think we do.